Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not just talking about classic films, we're actually digging into the source material, looking for the stories that almost were.
Yeah, the ghosts of movies past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're focusing on some really iconic films, cornerstones of pop culture that started out, well, pretty bizarre. Sometimes terrifying, often totally unrecognizable concepts.
Before the rewrites saved them, or maybe warped them, depending on your point of view.
Right. So our sources today are things like before the rewrite concept notes, we've got early draft excerpts and some pretty intensive film analysis looking at these huge shifts. And our mission, basically, is to find those key aha moments, what almost made it. And what do those changes tell us about, well, storytelling itself? Okay, let's unpack this.
It really makes you think how fragile cultural relevance actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, you realize the difference between a massive multi-generational hit and just like a forgotten flop could be something as simple as the main character's age. Is he 20 or 60? So if we connect this to the bigger picture, this deep dive really shows the power of revision. Not just tweaking, but, realizing a single decision, maybe even a studio buying the script, can completely pivot a story's meaning and how people receive it.
Pivoting is definitely the word, especially when we look at our first section. Iconic characters who were almost, well, totally different.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, where else do you start? But Star Wars, some of those earliest drafts are just wild.
They really are. It's almost like a masterclass in how not to launch a saga, looking back at some of that initial pitch material.
It feels like heresy to say, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the famous one, Han Solo. Not Harrison Ford, charming rogue, but a large green-skinned alien with gills.
With gills, yeah. Hard to imagine Chewie having the same chemistry with that guy.
Right, but maybe even bigger, Luke Skywalker. Not the young farm boy. In the very first concepts, he was this old, kind of weary general. And no Skywalker family connection at all.
And that specific change from that jaded general to the, eager kid, that might be the single most important rewrite Lucas ever did.
Really? Why that one specifically?
Because it unlocked the whole saga. If Luke's an old general, the story becomes about, I don't know, military strategy, maybe regret, looking back. It's a different vibe.
But couldn't you still have drama? Like an old veteran passing the torch?
You could, but it shifts the stakes. They become less personal, more maybe political or tactical. Young Luke, it gives the audience an entry point. We see this huge galaxy through his eyes.
Okay.
His journey, finding the Force, the whole father question, that becomes the engine. If he's already an old general, his choices are mostly made. It's about becoming. That's the hook.
And making Han human probably helped too, right? Less creature design budget needed.
Absolutely. Focuses the conflict, too. Makes it about the relatable human dynamic. Hero, rogue, princess, classic stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Moving from like alien clutter to human focus. It wasn't just better, it was clearer.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift to another reality-bending film, The Matrix. The final version's clarity came from making the extraordinary seem ordinary, but the original concept. Very different.
Oh, definitely. We know Morpheus was originally written as a woman in some early notes, which is a pretty big character pivot itself.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But the world Neo woke up in, that was radically different, too. He was supposed to be in the 22nd century, and the simulation wasn't our 1999. It was something else entirely.
And that's where the rewrite was genius, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Making the Matrix look exactly like the late 90s.
Precisely. The cubicles, the bad suits, those brick-like cell phones.
Yeah.
That grounding in the familiar, the mundane, is what made the film's big question, is this real?
Yeah.
So relatable. It wasn't just niche sci-fi anymore.
It hit home.
Yeah. If Neo woke up from a world of, like, flying cars and silver jumpsuits, it's cool, but it's distant. Using the everyday, the simulation becomes a critique of, our actual lives then. Corporate culture, tech dependence. The familiarity is the horror, in a way.
Okay, now for maybe the most extreme genre flip we found, The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, this one's great.
We all know it, right? Sepia, Kansas, then boom, Technicolor fantasy, Yellow Brick Road, Emerald City. But early drafts, totally different movie. Oz wasn't the Emerald City. It was this, like, futuristic neon metropolis.
Get out. Really?
Yeah. And the wizard wasn't some kindly old guy behind a curtain. He was a mad scientist or maybe an inventor ruling this techno city.
Wow. Okay, that sounds interesting. Like maybe some dark sci-fi satire, a commentary on technology or something.
Could have been, but the rewrite clearly went another way. Why do you think they ditched the sci-fi angle? It sounds pretty spectacular.
Well, maybe it was too spectacular, or maybe too complicated, too niche for the time. The genius of the rewrite, I think, was realizing the story isn't really about Oz, the place. It's about Dorothy.
Her wanting to go home.
Exactly. It's an internal journey. So they pivoted from this big external sci-fi thing to an emotional story using, universal fairy tale ideas, courage, heart, brains.
And the bumbling wizard fits that better.
Right. He reinforces the theme. Everything she needed was inside her all along, the mad scientist version. It just wouldn't have the same emotional core. It becomes about overthrowing a dictator, not finding yourself.
That shift from complex external critique to simple emotional truth, that actually leads us perfectly to our next film, which had maybe the biggest tonal shift ever.
Yeah.
From 3000 to Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a rewrite changing everything. We go from maybe too niche sci-fi Oz to something that was maybe too real, brutally realistic even.
Right. Before Disney got involved, 3000, named for the price Vivian charged for a week, was planned as this really gritty, dark drama. No glamour at all.
And Vivian, the Julia Roberts character, the charm, the wit, the vulnerability, that wasn't really there in the first drafts. She was described as struggling, addicted, just trying to survive.
And Edward, Richard Gere's character, not a charming prince, but cold, transactional, emotionally unavailable. Their relationship was purely business, rooted in, deep loneliness on both sides.
Yeah, tough story.
So here's where it gets really interesting. Disney, through Touchstone, their more adult label, buys this dark script. They see the drama, sure, but they also see a romance.
It was a huge gamble, right?
Yeah.
But they needed hits for that 90s adult audience, something beyond their usual fare.
And the rewrite wasn't just minor changes. It fundamentally altered the story's DNA, especially the ending.
The original ending was bleak, unforgiving. Edward literally tosses Vivian and the money out of his car and just drives off.
Wow. No fire escape rescue, no opera.
Nope. Just her on the curb with the $3,000, which becomes the symbol of, the cost of the whole degrading experience.
That sounds like it could have been a powerful indie film. Depressing, but powerful.
Absolutely. But not the movie that basically defined the 90s rom-com.
So the rewrite had to completely re-engineer the characters.
Totally. They kept the basic setup, the transaction, but they sanded down the roughest edges, gave both characters room to actually change.
Vivian becomes hopeful, more resourceful.
And Edward becomes redeemable. He finds some humanity through her. And getting Garry Marshall to direct, that was key. He brought the warmth, the humor it needed.
Turned a cynical study into a story about second chances.
Yeah, and created this enduring fantasy, the Pygmalion story, but, updated. Hollywood's been chasing that formula ever since.
It's amazing. Turning stark realism into a fairy tale.
Okay, but now let's flip that. Let's look at a story that arguably got colder, more ambiguous through the rewrite. The Shining. That famous battle between Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick.
Right. King's original vision, in his early drafts, was much more grounded in psychology.
How so?
For King, it was about Jack Torrance's internal demons. His alcoholism, his guilt, his failures as a writer, the crushing isolation of the Overlook. That was the horror, a slow, suffocating breakdown.
So the hotel was just a catalyst, a pressure cooker.
Pretty much, a setting for his inner collapse. In King's original concept, Jack was the monster, driven by purely human flaws. There weren't necessarily spectral twin girls or elevators full of blood or Lloyd the ghostly bartender.
Those iconic images weren't central.
The haunting was more subtle, maybe ambiguous, but definitely secondary to Jack's psychological state in King's version.
And then Kubrick comes in. And the rewrite process becomes about creating deliberate, maybe even purposeful ambiguity. Kubrick shifted the focus. The monster wasn't just Jack's human frailty. It became loneliness itself, the history of the place, something unknowable, colder.
He stripped away King's more explicit psychological stuff, the backstory, the clearer motivations.
Exactly. But crucially, the rewrite didn't just take things away. Kubrick added or emphasized those supernatural elements King had downplayed. The twins, the blood, Grady.
Was that just for scares? For cinematic effect?
Partly, maybe, but it was also a brilliant narrative tool. By making the supernatural so concrete, so visual, Kubrick makes it impossible to just write it all off as Jack going crazy.
So you can't easily explain it away.
Right. The film never gives you a definitive answer. Is Jack possessed by the hotel's evil? Or is he just the villain of his own broken mind, amplified by isolation? Kubrick blurs that line completely.
And that ambiguity. So that's the core of the film's power, isn't it?
I think so. It's why, decades later, people are still debating it, making documentaries, trying to figure out what's real in the Overlook and what's just inside Jack's head. The monster isn't just a ghost, it's the terrifying unknown of the human psyche under extreme pressure.
Okay, so we've seen quite a journey today. A green alien becomes a farm boy hero, bleak reality becomes a fairy tale romance, and clear psychology becomes this profound, chilling ambiguity. In every case, the rewrite, the whatever drove it, creative insight, studio mandate, directorial vision, was the step that took an interesting idea and turned it into the icon we remember.
Which, yeah, it raises an important question, doesn't it? Why these final versions? Why did they resonate so deeply when the originals might have faded away?
What do you think?
Well, it seems like in each case, the rewrite found some kind of universal nerve the first draft missed. Like with Pretty Woman, finding the hidden humanity, the hope in that transaction. Or with The Shining, making the ambiguity itself the source of tension and fascination. The final product just connected on a broader, maybe deeper level.
And for you listening, what this all means is that even these movies that feel so permanent, so fixed in our culture, they went through some pretty radical changes. Knowing where they started, whether it was a dark drama or, sci-fi Oz, it definitely deepens your appreciation for the final film. And the risks involved?
Yeah.
But it does leave us with a final thought, maybe something to chew on. If the version of a story that truly endures, the one audiences love, required basically demolishing the original creator's intent, like King versus Kubrick or turning 3000 upside down, does the audience's enjoyment, the cultural impact, ultimately justify that, let's call it, creative betrayal?
That's the million-dollar question in Hollywood, isn't it? And now you know just how high the stakes can be when they call in the script doctors.
We'll leave you to wrestle with that one.
Until next time, keep digging.